Okay, so now we were recording. Kirk would be very happy with me. Let's see here. Okay, so are we all good? Everyone can see it. Okay, awesome. So welcome everybody to week 3. I hope you guys are doing okay with this process. Tonight I'm going to just dive into the information first. And then the second half of the class, as soon as I kind of run through this, then it's going to be, you guys are going to talk to me about your process this week. And we're going to start to get a little more into the nitty-gritty of the actual grieving process, and it's going to feel a little more personal. Keep in mind, we are recording, so if you want me to stop the recording, please just let me know. I think I just decided to let you guys gauge that for yourselves, and I'll just honor that if I can figure out where the button is. So having said that, I'm going to go ahead and just start going into week 3. I hope it wasn't confusing for you guys to do some of this reading and the homework, those of you had a chance to do it, because we didn't really get a chance to talk about it before you guys dove in. So I'm going to talk about kind of what all of this stuff means and sort of how it plays into the grieving process as you guys work through it on your own with your own personal stuff, but then also as you work with others, right? So this is something that the grief recovery method kind of came up with, and I like it because it's really easy to remember and it's easy to kind of notice in yourself. So we're going to talk about a STERB, S-T-E-R-B, which is a short-term energy relieving behavior. Okay. And we create short-term energy relieving behaviors. Some of us in the therapy world call it alternative ways of coping, right? But basically, we cope in a way that helps us to get through day to day. And if we cope in certain ways or we practice certain behaviors enough, sometimes it can feel like we're really dealing with our feelings, right? And it can be kind of an illusion, because if we think, oh no, I'm doing fine, I'm doing great, right? I thought I'd be doing worse, but I'm actually doing pretty well. You'll hear people say that. When in reality, they are really practicing a lot of these, we call them short-term energy relieving behaviors, because it makes them feel better. It's self-soothing, and it kind of like sometimes diverts our feelings other ways so that we don't deal with what's really going on in terms of our grief. And so we're going to talk about STERBs today, because all of us do this and we all practice our, different kinds of behaviors that make us feel better when we're traumatized and when we're going through loss. So that's what a STERB is, short-term energy relieving behavior. You're going to see that term used a lot in a lot of your reading. So the behaviors that they're talking about can be, and it can be more than just this list, right? But it says, the direction is to identify a couple of them that you use when it comes to processing your loss. Okay. And this is where it gets a little more personal, right? Because you have to do a little bit of self-assessment, and it takes some amount of vulnerability to be able to talk about it, right? If you don't want to talk about it, it's okay, but I would encourage you to. So some of the behaviors can be this list, right? Food, alcohol, and drugs. Anger or exercise, fantasy like movies, TV, books, isolation, sex or shopping. We talk about retail therapy sometimes, right? Workaholism. Oh, I've got drugs on here twice. Exercise, isolation, and shopping. Looks like I don't know, sorry about that. I've got some repeats. Those are just some of the few, right? And there can definitely be more. So I just want to kind of give you a little overview of what some of them look like, what some of them are. And yeah, so that's that. So basically, the process is that we need to become more aware of things that we're doing subconsciously. And the possibility of changing some of the habits that hurt lies in becoming aware that they exist, right? So we want to become aware of what we're doing so that we actually understand that this is part of how we are processing some of our grief. And it doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that you have some other things at play here that might be diverting some of the feelings that are really going on related to your grief. So we're talking about STIRBs. What are they? It's important to remember that we might participate in them, but it's not because we're defective in any way. It's just because this is what our society has taught us to do, right? So let's just take the example of, we have a 7-year-old who's lost his puppy, right? And what is something like a parent would maybe like suggest when this 7-year-old is grieving the loss of his puppy, right? A lot of parents will just say, well, let's just get a new puppy, right? Instead of really leaning into the fact that we're going to miss this puppy then what it brought to our lives, right? And be able to hold that child in the midst of their grief and their loss and those feelings related there too. It's going to feel more like we want to just alleviate the pain and replace what got lost, right? So that's not necessarily a STIRB, but it is kind of, because it's like trying to help replace something that was lost and not really working on the feelings of loss. So that replacing the object or what we lost can be part of a STIRB. A lot of people that get divorced kind of do this, right? What do? Well, I'll just find somebody new, right? And that'll solve all my problems, right? So when you're grieving the loss of a marriage or a relationship, sometimes people do that, like they want to replace that loss rather than processing it and really getting to the other side of it. And we call it completing the loss, completing the experience of the loss, which hopefully we'll get to do by the end of this class. So, so basically that's kind of in a nutshell, I think what we need to understand is that we participate in them, but our society has kind of taught us to do that. So I want you guys to talk to me a little bit about STIRBs and what it is that you notice in terms of maybe your own processing of grief. And then I'd like for you to tell me a little bit about what relationship or situation you've decided to work on in terms of our class today. And I'm really encouraging you just to pick one, and we're going to help you focus on that. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the screen sharing because this is like the next part of the lecture that we'll go through if we have time. Okay, so let's go ahead and just start with Susan. I'm going to pick on you first, right? I want you to talk to us about what you've decided to work on in terms of what loss you've decided to focus on. And then talk to me about STIRBs and maybe what behaviors you notice for yourself when it comes to the feelings that you have related to that loss.
Okay. The loss I'm going to focus on is our son's divorce. I know that wasn't directly happening to me, but it did. We're a very close family and it affected all of us. And I remember clearly during that year that what I did, I got hard, is books. I read books like stop. I mean, I was working, so of course I had to work, but then to escape the feelings or thoughts I was having, I would read books. I read all the time. And I remember one time, I read on Kindle, and I have Kindle Unlimited on Amazon, and then I have all these library apps so I can get books. And the Kindle tracks how many books you read, and it said, you have read, congratulations, you have read 300, no, it wasn't. It was like 120 days in a row or something ridiculous.
Mhm. Mhm.
Wow.
Mhm.
Of course, I wasn't finishing a whole book. I would read at night or,
Mhm.
or I read during lunch or something, but yes, it was reading of this list. It's reading books.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
my friends wanted me to do retail shopping, retail therapy, but I could only afford to do that once or twice.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And isn't it interesting that something as wholesome or as beneficial in our life normally, like reading books, is something that becomes kind of an escape for us, right? And it kind of crosses over to being that energy relieving behavior because it helps to avoid our true feelings. Mhm.
Right. Or, yeah, right.
So do you feel like this class is going to help you with some unresolved feelings toward that situation that you
Yes.
haven't been able to
Yes.
settle? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Awesome.
Mhm.
Okay, Brenda Grace. I call you Brenda Grace because we have two Brendas. So
I'll take it.
share with us. Tell us.
Okay. Yeah, I'm choosing to focus on my brother's death that was in September. And he's the last one in our family besides me. And so I'm the last one. And there's some stuff there, unresolved things. But so that's what I'm focusing on. And I turn to food for most anything, but definitely during that. And I escape with movies, just on Netflix or whatever. Just I don't want to think. I just want to zone out, watching a movie.
Yeah, yeah. Did you have a good relationship with your brother?
Um,
Yeah.
at times,
Mhm.
a lot of
Yeah,
years not.
yeah. Yeah, we call that complicated grief when there's a loss and yet there is no it's there's some conflict there, or there had been some conflict there in the past, and we kind of don't know what to do with those conflicting emotions or feelings. And so yeah, that's I'm really glad that you brought that up because that's something that we're going to address in this process. And the next thing we're going to do is a loss graph, and that helps to alleviate some of the discrepancies between the good and the bad, right? Experiences with that
Okay.
person. So yeah, that'll help.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, nothing like food and movies. Yeah. How did you know that, like when you were reading through it, how did you know that that those were energy relieving behaviors as opposed to just in your normal course of what you do every day? Like, did you notice an increase?
Excess, yes. Yeah. Yeah. And really isolation is part of that too, you know, and not wanting to be around anybody else and just filling the time.
Right.
But yes, definite escalation of that. And so when you watch movies, you got to eat,
Of course. Right. Well, and my guess is your nature is not to isolate. You don't seem like the kind of person that you like people.
I normally need to be around people like every 2 or 3 days at least. So
Right.
through the last year or two, I've had to really concentrate on making that happen. So
Right. So
because we were caregivers for Kent's mother, and so I didn't go as much, and I
Mhm.
didn't work outside the home.
Oh.
And so
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's like, ooh,
Yeah.
this is my third day. I got to get out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. All right, Ace, you're up.
Okay, I guess quick question on the list, anger exercise. Would that be like I'm angry and
No. I'm laughing because I think it's just when I typed it out, I think it just like put words together and then it copied it. So it should be
Oh,
anger, exercise, like it should be independent. They should be independent of each other. I'm sorry about that.
okay, yeah. I
I
have to think
guess you
about
can
that for a
have
minute.
you can have anger
Yeah,
exercise.
you sure could. I think I was having it,
Okay. All right.
Okay. I guess mine is the loss of because I live here in the Philippines, and maybe the loss of the hope of having a relationship, a true relationship, or relating to someone. I guess I have to provide some background. Um, I guess I got to the point here in the Philippines. People are not well to do, and so a lot of my friends I found out were just there because they thought they can benefit from me in some way, and so I began to have trust issues, not only with them but my relatives as well. And so I guess I felt like I was being used. That this was the only thing that they wanted from me, and so uh, I used three. There were three. I guess first it was the anger part. Uh, Later on, it would be the isolation, and then the becoming a workaholic. To escape. So once I thought that my hope of relating to others or having a relationship, even just friends, I threw myself into my work. So that's where I redirected myself. But I guess oddly enough too is that on the times on my down times, I would find myself replaying maybe instances that would make me even more angry or would make me even more bitter. you know. And so I guess maybe that might be the reason why I would throw myself back into the work or into isolationism. But I guess it also, the pandemic also kind of affirmed it even further,
Right.
you know. So it was kind of like a perfect storm of the pandemic coming in.
How long have you been in the Philippines?
I've been here since 2012 in December. So what is that? Over 10 years, over a decade.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. And how long do you feel like you've been struggling with this loss of hope?
Um, I guess probably sometime before the pandemic occurred. But I guess, early on when I first did get here, I would move from place to place thinking, okay, maybe it's going to be different here, this place, but I ended up being, pretty much the same. And so, but I guess later on, after a few years of seeing that theme repeat, uh, I guess maybe that hope of being able to relate with someone sincerely without them having a pretense was kind of lost.
Mhm. That's so hard. Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about the anger. What did you notice? How does your anger show itself?
I normally it's in my down times when I'm thinking. I think it's better now. I think a lot of it started. I think maybe the healing process for me started months back. I think with Ryan's class, noticed some things. The replay when he talked about that replay, uh, it made me think. Okay, that's what's going on. I'm replaying these thoughts that are making me even more bitter and angry. Yet I still wasn't. I guess maybe I'm still trying to discover also how I'm supposed to deal with it. Should I replay it until it just subsides, or should I just uh, forget about it? Maybe go back into work so that I'm not thinking about it so much. But I think that the class has been helping just to be able to hear others and their griefs, expressing it, and also for some reason for me the writing assignments
Yep.
helps me just being able to express the grief and let it out
Yes.
also helps.
Yes. Right.
Mhm.
You know what's interesting? Have you ever heard of EMDR therapy? It's a
Mm-mm.
it's a therapy that uses eye movement to process trauma, and it's helpful with grief as well. And what
Mm.
happens, what it does in the therapy is that when we sleep, have you ever had a situation where you're really upset about something one day and then you wake up the next day and maybe it doesn't seem so overwhelming or so bad? Have you
Mhm.
ever had anything like that, like ever happen to you?
Yeah, I can't think of anything right off the bat, but I believe so.
Okay, or say even when we're kids, right? We get all
Mhm.
worked up and we think, oh man, I got to do that assignment tomorrow and I studied, but I have this test and what am I going to do? And it feels overwhelming. And then we wake up the next day and it's like, no, I got this. I can do this, right? It's kind of, so what's happening is when we sleep, our brain doesn't shut off. So our eyes move back and forth when we sleep. And this therapy, and so what's happening in your brain when that's happening is that things that are overwhelming to you are getting organized in your brain. Think of it like a filing system. So things are happening, you feel overwhelmed, and then you go to sleep and you wake up feeling a little less overwhelmed. It's because you've had all night for your brain to file away all of those different thoughts and anxieties and fears and worries. And hopefully it has a chance to kind of compartmentalize so that when you wake up, you don't feel as overwhelmed. That's kind of like a very elementary way of describing what happens when we sleep. EMDR therapy does the same thing, but it doesn't when you're awake. So if you
Mm.
have an EMDR therapist, they're going to say, when was the first time that you felt yourself feeling hopeless and feeling like you needed to isolate? You're going to come up with, a description of an event or a conversation or something that threw you into that emotional state. And then the therapist is going to say, okay, I want you to follow my finger back and forth. So they're going to get your eyes moving. And then they're going to have you process what that felt like and any other memories connected to that feeling or to that event, feeling hopeless, right? So
Mhm.
what the therapy does is it takes you back so that it can organize some kind of trauma or narrative that you picked up or started to believe about yourself or your circumstance that keeps you stuck. Because you've been there since 2012 and you're feeling, this feeling is definitely a loss, but it doesn't have to be a permanent like status quo for you.
Mhm. Right.
So the trauma therapy will help you find out where that is rooted, right? Where those feelings are rooted, and it will help you move beyond it along with recovering from some of this loss of time and relationship.
Mhm.
I really believe that feeling like there's no hope is probably one of the most intense types of loss that we can have because it isn't quite as tangible as a situation or a person that we've lost.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up because loss of hope is something that we really want to move toward because we want you to feel hopeful again
Mhm.
and find freedom and restoration, right? In what's ahead of you, what God has for you.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So and we need to find you a good trauma therapist.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Ron, did you want to share?
Yes, I can share. Mine would be my daughter that passed in on October 6th.
Mhm.
I think one of the things that I leaned on was staying busy.
Mhm.
Felt staying busy because staying busy would keep my mind off of what took place. So I was using staying busy and almost wanting to isolate, but the kind of person I am, I couldn't.
Mm.
So isolation was off the table. Yeah. The other ones on the list never occurred to me, never was anything that I wanted to do. But yeah, it would be staying busy.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm. And do you feel like you're not as busy right now in letting yourself kind of move toward some of the feelings? Or is it like you're kind of doing both?
I'm actually doing both. Um, uh, I'm not staying busy anymore to not think about it anymore. Yeah, so
Right.
I know that I need to think about, I need to be able to think about it because I can't stay busy, 24/7. So and the isolation part, I don't isolate because I found out I'm kind of a people person.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I don't like crowds, but I like the lady was speaking earlier, Brenda, about I could only be in the house for a couple of days. By that third day, I got to go somewhere and get out. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's helpful. I've been out of the house all day today. I met with uh, two different men that one is a member of the church that I belong to, but then the other one is a member of the church that we're planning. So I kept myself real busy today. It
Mhm.
wasn't intentional. It just worked out that way.
Right.
So, but just getting out helps. And when I have moments to where I want to cry, I just cry.
Mhm.
If I have moments, that I want to laugh, I just laugh. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't bottle none of it in.
Mhm.
And so, with this class, is helping me, like the gentleman was saying earlier about writing and talking helps. It
Yes.
helps. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Okay. I was going to ask you, so you were talking about thinking about it, thinking about things, but you said you can cry whenever you need to, right? So
Yes.
you're not totally in your head all the time. It sounds like the emotional part of you is still online and functioning. So that's good.
Yes, indeed. Gotta get it out.
Yeah, you do.
I feel it's better out than in. So, but
Yeah.
out in a good way.
Yeah. Because a lot of people don't give themselves that permission.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people really hold back because feelings are kind of scary and you don't know if it's ever going to stop. You don't know if you're ever going to feel like you can regulate yourself again. And so people hold back because that possibility is too scary. So,
Yes. And I'm the type of person I don't believe in holding things in.
mhm,
Um, I believe it's best to get it out because the more you get it out, the more I believe that I'm able to heal somewhat.
yep.
So I like to get it out.
Well, and it's interesting how, like, that's why we need community, right? That's why we need each
Yes.
other. And that's why even a class like this is so helpful because, where else can you say what you need to say in a safe place, right?
Exactly. Because, like I said, I have a pretty large family, but no one else in my generation has experienced or is experiencing what I'm experiencing. And so I don't hear from a lot of them as much because I believe they don't, from what I see, they don't they don't really have anything to say except for I'm sorry, or sorry for your loss, But for us, me being able to vent and talk to people, I'm not able to do that. So that's why I'm glad that I am a part of a community of people who are grieving in some form or fashion.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Our other Brenda, can you talk to me? Brenda, I can't see your last name because it's too little on my screen. What's your last name?
Beasley,
Beasley. Okay. Got
just
it.
like B as in boy, but V as in
But
Vicky.
V. Got it. Okay, Brenda V.
Yeah, Brenda V, that would be me. That's what I get called. First, I want to say good evening to everyone. And I'm a little teary-eyed at this evening, so bear with me.
Okay.
Because today I had a breakthrough.
Oh.
After reading the chapter a couple of times and going back over everything that I had read, I thought my grieving was because of my divorce, which has been almost 20 years ago. But I realized that it wasn't just that. And I think I put this in my first homework. I love and I love hard. And people walk away, and I don't always understand why. And so today, what I realized is that, and this is going to sound crazy, y'all, from 6 years old, even until now, people have always walked away from my life. And I was sitting here today and I was like, what am I going to tell the class this evening? I thought it was about the divorce that I went through and how much I really loved my husband. Oh my God, he was the love of my life. And it wasn't no knockdown, drag out, cheating, all that. He just didn't want to be married anymore. And that was it, bottom line. Walked away, left. And I thought that's just all it was that. But today I realized it's not just the loss of my husband, but it's the loss of other relationships that I've had through the years. And so I was so excited because I said, that's what has been my problem. Is I always know I love her. Oh my God, I get so angry with my own self because I love so hard. And so what I find myself doing in this this stage of what we call grieving, I'll cook. I will cook food that I'm not going to even eat. I may taste it and I'm done with it. But I would just cook. One of the other issues is I love playing games. And so to take my mind off of whatever I'm thinking about, I will pick up my phone or my iPad and I'll start playing that game until I fall asleep sometime, unless I have to do something for church. And it was one other thing I was going to mention that I did. In the book, in the chapter 8, it talks about the teapot in the court. I find myself in situations where I don't say much. But then it builds and it builds and it builds. And then I'm that teapot. And the reactions that I give, I gotta admit, sometimes they're not always as godly as they should be. But it's a blow up. So that's like anger, right? Because now I'm feeling like I'm being taken advantage of again. I feel like my love is being abused again. And so that's where the teapot comes in. It's like, I'm not going to let this happen again. And so, in a nutshell, my grieving is the people walking away and me not always knowing why.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, one of them was my mother. I today, oh my God, the picture was so vivid. I remember so many times she would come to see me with my grandmother, but then she would leave. And oh my God. And even when I lived with her, she was always gone. And I'm not saying she didn't love me. And mind you all, I was an only brat, but I wasn't a super spoiled brat. I was an only child. And so naturally, I would cling on to family and friends, you know, for that love. Father abandoned me as well. So it's a love thing for me. And so that's what I came to into fruition with. It wasn't just my husband leaving, it was about him and the people that was in my life that walked away and I didn't know why.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
I know that's different, but
No, it's so profound.
yeah.
What did that feel like to have that breakthrough?
Oh, I've been crying all day. Because that's what it was.
Uh-huh.
The abandonment.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to text people and say, why? But God said, no. I said, why can't I text them? He said, no. And each individual that I wanted to text, he would say no. I'm like, okay. And I didn't text anyone. I didn't text anyone. And so today, it's like he answered all of the prayers that I've been praying. Why?
Mhm.
So he showed me that my grief was I have to let go and breathe.
Mhm.
It was some kind of breakthrough. I mean, I was calling my friends today. I
Yeah.
say, this book I'm reading has really helped me.
Yes.
I had my granddaughter jammed up in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You got to listen to what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
And she just stood there and listened, you know.
Yeah.
But it was a breakthrough for me today. I'm going to go on with the class.
Okay, good. So, Brenda, when you have that feeling, right,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
you were talking about your mom, how old do you feel when you feel that feeling? How old are you?
Between the age of 6 and 8.
Okay.
Mhm. Because that was the time period mostly
Okay,
that it hurt.
I'm gonna encourage you
Mhm.
to choose the loss of the relationship you wish you would have had with your mom as your subject for what you're processing. Do you think you can do that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And then we'll,
I think I can do it. I can say that in the latter years, my mom and I were very close.
yeah.
In the latter years.
So this is a really good discussion, right?
Mhm.
Is that we have things that hurt us, kind of what I talked about in week 1, right?
Mhm.
We have wounds that are so young and so deep in us that when we're little, we cannot process them. We don't have the ability to process them. And sometimes it takes us our whole life to have what you have had today, this breakthrough, right? God
Mhm.
is ready to heal that part of your soul. And it doesn't mean that we're vilifying anybody, we're not blaming anybody. You know, we
Mm-mm.
all act out of our limitations. I do, my children do, my parents did, right? This isn't about somebody being bad or good. This is about you and how whatever happened to you affected that part of you that got wounded. That's all it's about.
Mhm.
And it's about the Holy Spirit coming in and healing you and giving you that incredible resource that only He has to heal
Mhm.
you. Right. Awesome, Brenda. Oh my
Thank you.
gosh. Thank
Thank
you.
you all for letting me share.
Of course.
Mhm.
And I bet a lot of people benefited from your stirb, right? Cooking. Do other people eat your food?
Oh, do they ever? Yes.
And that's a perfect stirb because it's very satisfying because people give you what you hope for, right?
Mm,
And they
Yeah.
appreciate you and yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and that one of the other things I think Ron said it. I think it was Ron that said keeping busy.
Mhm.
That's one of the things that I find myself doing a lot for the past 3 years. That's what I found myself doing, always taking care of somebody, running errands for someone, making food and taking it to their homes, just staying busy. Other than, I have church stuff I do as well. I'm over a prayer ministry there. And so I'm constantly doing things. If it's not the hospital, it's somebody's house. If it's not their house, it's a family member, So I was always just staying busy, busy, busy.
Mhm.
But I'm working on that as well, even prior to this class. Now I take a couple of days a week where I do absolutely nothing except what I want to do.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Yeah, because you get to have you, right?
Mhm.
Not everybody
Yes.
gets to take from you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome. Oh, that's so great. Thank you so much. I'm so encouraged. That's awesome. Okay, cool. All right. Linda, do you want to share?
Well, yeah, I was kind of torn between a couple of things that are going on with me. And so tonight I'm just trying to figure out which one am I going to choose. I'm going to choose grieving the loss of my sister.
Okay.
Um, to her, I'm not really sure what's going on with her, but she's isolated herself. And I think a part of it has to do with mental illness
Oh,
and a lot of trauma that she suffered, and my mother's passing. So she's pretty much isolated herself completely from our family. And she's very angry, especially at me, more so than anybody. And just losing, she's my baby sister, so losing that relationship. And it has been gone since my mother, maybe a little bit before my mother, while my mother was ill. So it's been about, I would say about 6 or 7 years since she's been really connected to our family.
mm,
And so the way that I have dealt with it, initially, it was just constantly trying to reach out to her and bring her back in. But dealing with the rejection over and over again, and with much prayer and support from family, I was able to come to terms with the fact that I have to let God, work through this for our family and just work on supporting and keeping our family together while everybody else is dealing with her not being a part of our family.
mm,
It's something that has been very um, difficult to accept because within within us all as believers, we know that relationships are crucial in terms of what the Lord has expects of us. And so you wonder, do I keep reaching out or do I just give that space? So there's a lot of
right.
conflict here about, which do you do? Do you let her go?
Mhm.
It's like you wonder, well, no, that's not what we do. We keep trying. And of course we try, but then there comes a point where you just want to be there and ready for when God is ready for her to return. And so the way that I often deal with situations in my life where I feel a loss is I isolate myself because I've always been a loner anyways. And I think that this practice or this coping skill has been from childhood. I've never really allowed myself to have those close relationships. And
Oh, I think I lost you. There you
so,
go.
yeah, and so isolation is one of them, but I've become so comfortable with being with myself
Yeah. Mhm.
that it's not something that that I feel like a loss because I'm a loner, you know. So and um the other way that I cope, um, I would have to say is workaholism
Mm.
because I will get involved and engaged in so many activities
Mhm.
that I'm constantly overwhelmed. I'm constantly doing this and this and looking for more to do, taking on a responsibility, writing or working, just adding more on top, piling one thing, another thing, to where I'm just totally overwhelmed. And it gives me an opportunity not to think about the loss. I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I am you. That's why I'm smiling. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
and so, but this chapter in particular, chapter 8, and just going through the book is helpful to me, and I wish that I was not so full of projects and things.
Oh, I lost you again.
I haven't been able to really give myself to this book, and because I have so much.
Mhm. Yeah.
So even I was when I decided to enroll in this class, my husband said, "No, you're doing another. You already have so much going on that you're doing," and but I said, "Well, I'll just audit it, you know." And it's kind of hard to audit the class when the class requires so much, input from all of us. It wouldn't be fair to the other class of my classmates for me to just sit back and not participate in like that. Um, so just bear with me. I'm coming and going, but this particular assignment was very eye-opening for me. And it helps me to reflect back on some other things that I don't want to share tonight in the class.
Yeah.
Some losses from the past
Right.
that gave me some insight on why I have been a loner for most of my life, and insight about why I just drown myself in activities and work, and why I don't allow people to get too close.
Wow. That is so that's so vulnerable for you to share that with us. And I really hold that and I really honor that. That's very humbling to hear of a capable woman who is so connected to yourself that you know what it is that you're running toward and what it is you're running away from. And you're willing to stop and actually just take a look around, because a lot of us never do that. especially if you're in the helping profession, because it's so easy to justify and to get lost in the process of being about everybody else, right? To our own demise. And, you know, that's so amazing that you're willing just to hang in there and participate on any level that you can and want to. Because that's really that's really what matters. You know, there's a reason that you don't want to open yourself up, and that needs to be honored and respected, you know. So thank you for sharing that. I'm with you. I'm like workaholic 101. This my husband's like, you're teaching another class. It's just the same thing. Like, what are you doing? Right. But it's interesting because honestly, this is like the bright part of my week. This is the thing that I really enjoy. So, I mean, it's not that I don't enjoy other things, but I, you know, and so it becomes about having a level of satisfaction in something I'm doing rather than it being the thing that contributes to being overwhelming. So thank you for being with us. I'm so glad you're here and for sharing.
Thank
So,
you.
awesome. All right. Cheryl, are you ready? Can you want to talk to us?
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry for being late. I've been having issues with my computer and getting the kids to where they needed to be, but
Totally okay. We're just glad you're here. How old are your kids?
2 and well, no, both of them just turned 3 and 4.
Oh my gosh, you have little ones.
Yeah. So those are I do foster care, and those are my foster babies.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I kind of came in late, but so I do know that you wanted to know what we were going to focus on, and I choose to focus on the loss of my son. And so when I lost my son, he was my only child, as I stated before, and so that was kind of hard, just dealing with it. And there's some days I'm a crybaby, some days I'm not. So if I start crying, I'm sorry. But I think dealing with CJ's loss, I turned into trying to help everybody else, helping somebody else. And so again, that's how I chose to do foster care. I got into the fostering kids, and I am on my, this is the 5th family of fosters that I had. These 2 babies are brothers. And so I did that also with doing the grief support group that I started. And I don't know, I felt like I was determined to, let's see, how would I say this? Determined to make a ministry out of my misery. So I decided to do, and I really love, getting engaged, listen to the other ones that have to share in my grief group. And I felt like this class would help me, in which it helped more than I wanted to bring some insight on how I would conduct my support group. But it also in turn is helping me a whole lot. And like I believe Ron and Ace and some of the others said, the writing, doing the exercises, and then coming talking about it. Like I'm like you. Wednesday nights it used to be my church night that I love going to church. So it used to be my church night. Now I'm looking forward to Wednesday so I can get on here with y'all.
Awesome.
With you all. And so it kind of, helped just to, it always helped to be able to share with others that is going through what what you're going through.
Yeah.
So again, I'm like Ron, when I want to cry, it just come out and I cry. I don't care who is, who's there. Sometimes I care. And like I say, I shared with you all before that I love talking about my son. Or, I can sit and talk about him all day and just, think about the little crazy stuff he did, and just get a kick out of that. And then sometimes I think I would kind of hold back on talking about him because I'm like, I don't want to run people off. Am I talking about him too much? And then there's other days when I'm like, I'm entitled to do this. I'm going to talk about my baby. I don't care what they say. So I'll talk about him or whatever. And I always say now, I tell them, if y'all need me to be quiet, y'all better let me know, because I'm going to go on and on and on. He was, 19. I had him for 19 years. God gave him to me for 19 years to, so those 19 years was something else with him. So, I just think about a lot of stuff that, going on. And as I shared with the homework that we had, I said, I shared about the color orange.
Yes. Okay.
This was, I found out like he was the type that liked, he always did his own thing. And so he was like infatuated with socks. He loved socks, like every color sock it was. So we always get my nephew and he that was the same age. They was a month apart, but every time we sit and talk about him, like on Thanksgiving when we get together, because he did pass away on Thanksgiving. So on Thanksgiving, when all my family are together and we are sharing about, about CJ, which was my son, we always, my nephew always laugh about his stories, always remembering the socks. And he would share a story about he and my husband and my son watching a basketball game. And so they would be all into the game. And they said that my son would be really quiet. And then he would say, man, did you see them socks he had on? So they would be fussing about, I don't know why Kevin Durant didn't do this. So I don't know why, Kobe didn't do this or whatever. But then they would say, and when it was his turn to say, what I don't understand is, he would say something about the socks. Did you see his socks? So it's he was just a character anyway, but he liked bright colors. So orange was his favorite color. So I knew he liked bright colors, but I didn't really know orange was really his favorite color until afterwards. And when he passed away, even at the funeral, our colors was white and orange. And and like when he passed away, all the kids that he went to school with or whatever, out of the blue, they came up with wearing their orange shirts. So they all wore these orange shirts or whatever. So orange became my favorite color.
Of course, yes.
So I don't know, sometimes I think I go overboard with it. I mean, every single time we have something, and even at church or at home, but I know at church a lot because I'm involved in a lot of different, like our prayer group, our women's department. And during our anniversary, when they say, what are we gonna wear? They let us all pick colors. What are we gonna wear on Women's Day? And if they look at me, they already know I'm fixing to say orange. Orange. So my nails are orange. I can't get away from it. I go to the salon and I'm trying to pick my color. It's always gonna be the orange. And my husband is a painter, and he said he had painted our cabinets black. So we had these real pretty black. So I was thinking, how can I, decorate orange with that? And he was like, Cheryl, we are not gonna have a kitchen looking like Halloween. So orange, I mean, everything I try to put an orange with. I have a lot of orange clothes. I try not to, but I'm just infatuated with orange now. I just love it. And everybody know it. And it's like,
That's
whenever
awesome.
somebody give me something, it's orange. They're gonna make something orange.
That's
And I'm
awesome.
just like, I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Like having a
But,
piece part of him with you.
yeah, I do. I mean, I know. And one other crazy thing that I don't know. I say it's crazy after like I got over it, over this step. So okay, have you all on here? Have you all heard that? I know my grandmother and probably her mom and everybody have always said, my mother have always said, have always been against tattoos.
Okay.
So they always tell me since I was a little girl, I've heard that, God said, do not, harm your temple and, don't put a tattoo on your body, this and that. So I have always been against tattoos. Okay, and especially when I got in church, I really was like, no tattoos, and no, that is just a sin. No tattoos. Well, when my son passed away, the very next year, I decided to go and get a tattoo. It's wings on my ankle with CJ in the middle. Okay, I did that, and I always felt like I had to have something with him, wanted him close to me, something about him being close to me. So I got the tattoo. Then I turned around and got a whole picture of him on my arm. So I'm like, and the funny thing about it is I remember him getting a tattoo. And I told him, you better not get a tattoo. No, don't get the tattoo or whatever. And one Christmas morning, I get it because he moved with my mother. So on a Christmas day, I get a text when I wake up that morning, and it's a big old picture of his chest, and it's the full tattoo of these wings on his chest, and he has my mother and my mother-in-law's name is on it. And so I was like, what did you do? And so he said, but mama, I got grandma and nana's name on me. And then he said, even look at this. He had my name and his dad's. And so I was like, I'm arguing with him about, you're not supposed to get tattoos. And I thought it was so crazy when I went and got my But I mean, just to have something with him, I know it's just, and I don't know, sometimes it may be a bad thing. Like I say, normally I wouldn't have gotten a tattoo. That is just against my religion to get tattoos. But after I got the tattoo, I went to my pastor and I told him, I called him and I said, I did something today. And they was like, what? And when I told him, I said, now, I sure hope I don't go to hell and miss seeing CJ. Miss out on seeing him because I got these tattoos. But however, I just wanted to kind of share that, and because I'm just that type of person. I think I don't want to like push the color orange on anybody, which I do, but I don't do it intently doing it. I don't want to, by me talking about him all the time. I don't know, but for some reason, it just helps me. It just really helps me. And I may start off, I could either, I have these emotions where I'm happy at first, and then I may get sad at the end, or either vice versa. So I don't know, but one thing I do know is that this class is really helping me. I
Good.
enjoy, studying and studying the book. And then I try not to go any, I don't want to get ahead of it,
Uh-huh.
I go ahead, but the book is really good and it's really helping me. And like I say, you know, I think it's just, I don't know. And at first, whenever someone told, like the ministers or the people at church told me, your God is going to give you a ministry out of this. And I was like, no, he could have chose some other way than taking my baby to give me a ministry out of. But I really, really believe it. I really believe it, that to be true.
Yep.
And so like I say, I enjoy helping others, who are grieving, whether it be, a loss of a divorce or whatever. Whenever people come to me and we talk about it or whatever, and I'm able to share and they're able to share, I really think I started out thinking I was going to help somebody, but I think it's helping me.
Cheryl, can I ask, how much time had passed between when you lost your son and when you started your group?
It was a year. Let's see. No, actually, I think it was 2 years after I lost my son.
2 years. Okay. Okay. All right. And that's interesting that you see that it was somewhat of a way of working through your grief, but also it was kind of an energy relieving behavior too, right? It was kind of both. Yeah. I think a lot of the things that we use to cope are kind of fall into both categories sometimes, where they're helpful to us, but it's also like maybe preventing us from really working through. And it's hard to say that because it's such a long process to work through grief. It can take a long time to come out to complete a relationship, especially if you don't have any kind of format to do it. And this is why that's kind of what we're working on, right? Is giving you guys a format to work on one particular loss. And then you apply it to different losses. But I just love that you guys are so amazing. And I love hearing your stories. I thought you were going to say that you got like a tree, of oranges or something tattooed. That might be a good idea for the next one, right?
No,
An orange tree.
No, I'm not getting another one.
I love that. I hope your pastor absolved you from all guilt for getting a tattoo. Okay, good. Because I'm in California and there would be a lot of people that are not in a good place. That was the ultimate sin.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I really, 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 really enjoyed hearing your story. And don't ever let up telling your stories, because you never know who you're ministering to and how it comes back to help you as well. I had one of my mentors, probably my most profound mentor that I had, was quite elderly. And she just told me, Kathy, never, ever minimize the power of testimony, because it's within our testimony that I feel like true healing comes, right? It humbles us and it makes other people feel connected and like they're not alone, right? So we have about 20 minutes left to go. I'm going to share with you guys a little bit, but I want to
Kathy,
question.
did you ask Sharia?
Oh, Sharia, where are you? Are you here? Where are you?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I don't see you on my pictures. That's why. Sharia, thank you, Susan. Okay, go for it. Tell us, Sharia, what's happening.
I apologize, but I'm having camera issues. I'll get that fixed by next week. So, well, I have to say that from the first class, the tools that you have given us and shared with us have been invaluable. I had lost my brother almost 2 years ago, and I am the last of the family members. I had not cried the loss of my brother until I listened to your first class, and it validated some of the things I was going through, which has brought a lot of healing, because it's like, what is wrong with me? You know, I'm a strong woman. This doesn't usually affect me, but it has. And knowing that I am the one that's left, even though we both had children and different things, my immediate family is gone, as far as my siblings and my mom and dad and stuff, grandparents, I'm it. And so I think besides the loss of my brother, dealing with the singleness now has been difficult.
Yeah.
He experienced a long-term illness. So we knew that, you know, his days were numbered in the beginning, even though it was a matter of years. And so for me, I turned to isolation, which was quite easy in the midst of COVID, and then working from home. And I didn't realize how much I had isolated until my daughter actually came over to visit and said, "Mom, you haven't left the house in 3 months." You know, I had gone to get groceries, stuck them in the car, and came right back home, as far as, you know, pickup, not getting out and actually going in the store. And so upon that, I began forcing myself out as much as I could, you know, with COVID going on and different things, even if it was just for a drive, something like that, because it was easy to get wrapped up in work and things going on around home. That was easy to do. But normally my go-tos is going to be the food. And then the isolation is just easy because I don't mind being alone. I've been alone for a very long time. So, you know, I'm accustomed to it. It's not an issue, but it's really bad. I have a senior dog who I had gone through that period of isolation where days I wouldn't even speak. And so she would bark at me because I wasn't even talking to her. And so that has changed. But, you know, so I've seen the process, but I've seen more helpful items with just coming to the first class and the second class, and a lot of releasing for me and knowledge, and reading the different chapters in the book. You know, reading the meaning of guilt, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, things like that really spoke volumes to me, and it released me.
Yeah.
And I needed that.
Mhm.
You know, the other thing is that I found that through the isolation and the food is that even at work, if I was on a Teams call or something, even though I'm a very direct woman, very direct person, besides being direct, I was coming across angry
Oh.
in my tone and my verbiage, and I wasn't angry. I really wasn't at anything going on, but I was conveying anger. And so I've really been working on that aspect of things. And of course, and not isolating and getting out more, and, you know, being with people and actually being involved in doing things now, even though it's been a slow process, it's, you know, really starting to move forward now, not for the busyness, but for the interaction with other people, besides just Zoom or Teams meetings, because there's no interaction there really, you know.
Right.
And so I'm realizing quite a bit of these things as I go through the book and as I listen to your teachings. And I've even gone back and listened to the first one a couple of times because it really spoke volumes to me. And like I said, just the validation alone of somebody saying, you know, this, and this, and explaining what I was experiencing made sense to me.
Yeah.
Because like, again, I'm known to be a strong person, and I wasn't permitting certain things. But I think with the isolation, I was so numb that, you know, I was moving around in a mummy stage and doing things. and I really wasn't feeling anything. And like I said, I felt a lot break even through that first teaching and with the tears that came.
Yeah.
There was some release, and I needed that. And then listening to everyone else, I'm like, oh, I can so understand what they're saying. Which is huge. For me to allow myself to experience those things and to say, you know what, it's okay not to be as strong as everyone, would say that I need to be, or that I am, or that I should be over it, because I'm not.
Yeah. Right. And, and it is okay to be angry if that's how you feel, whatever you feel is okay. And I think 2 years is nothing when it comes to a lifetime with a sibling, right? That's ridiculous to think that you would be over it when you have a lifetime of memories. And, so I'm so glad you're giving yourself permission, because I think for strong people, strong women, especially, some of us have a hard time giving yourself permission to feel what you feel and to not feel like you have to justify it. And I think a lot of it is about just giving yourself that permission in that room. So I'm so glad that you shared that. And yeah, onward. Thank you for sharing. I'm so sorry I didn't call on your name. I'm just going by pictures I see. So it isn't that I don't care. I just want you to.
It's
And
all right.
It's so funny because I'm actually taking notes because I'm so used to taking notes. I'm like, why am I taking notes? I don't have to take notes, but I care, right? It's like, it's important to me to like honor your process and what you guys share. So, okay. Kenva,
Well,
are
I'm
you? Go ahead.
ignorant, so I
Sorry.
understand. I'm as well. And when you go through the lessons, like I wrote down STURB as far as, the definition and things like that. And so, because I go back and look at those and as I'm reading them, it jogs my memory and even my emotions.
Yes.
So that I can embrace them. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay. Well, perfect lead in to where I'm going next. Perfect. Oh my gosh, that was perfect. Kenva, are you with us? Are you able to?
Hi, Miss Kathy. Yes, I'm
He
here.
is here. Okay. So are you tracking? Can you share with us a little bit about what's happening and what STURBs you feel like you're using? And
Oh, okay, sure. I'm definitely think I'm gonna go ahead and focus on the loss of my mom. I
okay.
think we had talked about that in email together.
Yes.
She had breast cancer that metastasized pretty much her bones and the rest of her body. My dog is whining. I don't know why. I'm just gonna go to another room. Give me a second.
Okay.
I just walked through the door and I'm trying to get dinner.
Oh, sorry. Do you
No,
want to
no,
do you
no,
want to
no,
do you
it's
want to
okay.
wait until next week? I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'll be really quick. I'll only take a couple minutes.
Oh no, you're okay. You're okay.
So yeah, she passed away in passed away the day before Easter of 2021. So about going on 2 years now. This April will make 2 years. And for the last roughly 7 to 8 months of her life, I was her primary caregiver. So she was living with me and my husband and stepson, and she was in a hospital bed for pretty much the last part of her life, but we had such a great time together. And when you were talking about, complicated grieving and stuff like that, when I was growing up, we were kind of like oil and water. We just did not get on. But as I became an adult, we just became the best of friends. And that last 7 months was such a blessing for me. And I took care of her. And after the funeral, I guess my STURBs would have been, I kind of just lost my appetite. I just did not want to eat. And I would go the entire day and sometimes just eat like a few pieces of fruit. And that went on for a while. Sometimes what was the other STURB? Because I was actually making notes and I don't know what I did with my notebook right now. I threw it into my bag. I guess to a lesser extent, a lot of like kind of the isolation, but I'm kind of introverted anyways. So I'm always isolated anyways, I kind of feel like. And definitely the fantasy, like reading books, like I think I forgot who had talked about reading like tons and tons of books on her Kindle. Like reading tons of books. I have a lot of library apps as well. And so reading books and watching movies. I'm not really much of a binge watcher when it comes to TV shows and stuff, but I like movies and just kind of staying to myself because I wasn't working at the time and staying at home. And then I wouldn't say workaholism, but maybe a kind of busyness because I was always trying something new because there's that novelty when there's something new, right? It's kind of exciting, it's kind of fresh. And so I dive into like oil painting or acrylic painting. And then after a couple of days or a couple of weeks, I didn't want to do any of that anymore. And then, oh, I'll study Mandarin. Why? Because I'm at home and I have nothing better to do. Stuff like that. So I guess you could say kind of like a workaholism, more like a busyness. Those
Yeah.
are, I think, my principal ones. There are a couple others that are less. But I think I also explained to you in that email. I mean, my mom was kind of like the start of it that year. But I also my husband lost his father a couple months later. And then we lost my grandmother and an aunt. And so it was kind of like this compounding thing, but definitely my mom for me was the worst of the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's wise that you're going to focus on that loss. We always try to encourage people to process the earliest loss, if possible, if it's not something, more impactful. So I'm glad that you're focusing on that. Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
And so I'm going to go into, we have about 5 minutes left, and I feel like I just want to kind of introduce you guys to this because if I don't want you guys to be confused. So we're going to talk about it's called a loss graph, LOSS graph. So I'm really hoping you guys can see this. Can you guys? Let's see, I'm not on screen, so let me see if I can put myself on screen. Okay, so can you guys, you should be able to see this okay. So what you're going to do after you read the chapters is you're going to start your own loss graph with respect to whatever loss you're processing. And what you're going to do is you're going to start from they call it the dawning memory, or the first memory, the earliest memory from the first part of your graph. And then you're going to go to, see if I can go this way. And then you're going to go to, see if this way. So this is the first memory, and then you're going to go to the last. So this is my loss graph. I'm just giving you a really cursory like vision of it, because I want you guys to add as much detail as you feel like you want to. So tagging on to what Sharia said about not even knowing and connecting your feelings toward your loss, this is going to help you guys connect your feelings to the loss. And those of you who are really lost in the feeling, this is going to help you give it some concrete sort of way of processing. So it kind of does both. Okay. So this is my loss graph, and I'm just sharing it with you really quickly. And it's the loss of my marriage. Okay. The loss of a hope, dream, or expectation with my first husband. Okay. It's been a long time. I've been married to Patrick now for 10 years. And we dated for 4 years. So it's been over 18, 19 years for me. And still there are things that come up on here that are new to me, which tells me that, when you have I was married for 15 years. So when you have a long-term marriage and you have a lot of trauma related to that relationship, there are going to be different things that come up, but the goal is to complete the relationship or the loss And so that's what we're working on here. Okay. I only have a few minutes left, but what I want to do is just show you. For me, it was easier to do it by age. So I met him when, let me see. It's hard for me to look at it upside down. Let's see here. Okay, so we met when I was 20. Okay. And one of the first memories I have is we met, I was a singer, and we met in a music group. There were 8 of us in the group, and he played piano. So that was one thing that really stuck out to me about him. He was incredibly talented, almost savant. He could hear a full orchestra and know if one player was flat. I mean, he was incredible. So played piano. He was incredible at playing piano. So the first memory I have is when we were in a rehearsal, and that's when we met. Okay. So, and I was 20 years old. Now the impact, the emotional impact of that meeting, you can see I only drew it down like a little bit, right? So it was impactful, but it wasn't like hugely impactful in terms of the intensity of the emotion, I guess is what I'm measuring here. Okay. So the second thing I have is he made me a birthday cake when I was 20 years old. Okay. And that was just something that came up that I remembered. Okay. Don't try to super psychoanalyze what comes up for you. If it comes up, just write it down. Okay. Don't put yourself through a huge pace of, well, how impactful was that? Or like, don't put yourself through that. Just write it down and just kind of the best you can. You don't want to make this it's not like that. No one's going to look at this except for you. And I'd like for you guys to share it at some point, but it's really more for your process. And then the next thing that I have down here is that we got, let's see, what does it say? Oh, I said lots of friends and family, and we had a really fun time. We traveled a lot, did a lot of really fun things. And that was like even more of an intensity because that was really a cool time. And then here, see if I can look at it. Oh, worship leading. So he was a pastor at our church. We was a very large church, and we did a lot of worship leading together. And I have to say that was like as close as I've ever felt to heaven. It was amazing. So this line should be pretty far down, but that was really a cool time too. So, and that was when I was 25. So between 20, and it's interesting because I didn't bring our wedding up here and I'm grieving the loss of my marriage. So I thought, oh, that was interesting. So, but we got married right in here when I was about 22. And then nothing really came up for me in between 25 and 20, this is 26, I guess, so for about a year. And then my first child was born, and you can see the intensity of that was here. And then my second child was born when I was 28, and the intensity is here. And then this goes off the chart when I was 32. 28, and this is 32. And this is when I found out that he had a relationship with another guy, one of the pastors at our church. Actually, get this, he was the marriage and family pastor, licensed marriage and family therapist at our church. And so he had a relationship with him. And this is where the disclosure happened. So incredibly stressful for me. I was also pregnant with our third son at the time. And so incredibly stressful and traumatic for me, obviously. And then, let's see, and then what's this one? Oh, and then this is therapy, right? And you can see it wasn't as intense because the therapist wasn't very good, but it was still impactful because I learned that there was no desire to do anything different, no repentance. And so, but then through some other sets of circumstances, manipulations and whatnot, I stayed with him, didn't think it was Christian for me to divorce. So I stayed with him, and we got pregnant and had our twins at age 34. And then at age 36, he decided to sell our house and use the proceeds for a business he was building and lost everything. I mean, everything. So obviously this graph would continue to go on, but all of these lines here that are off the chart are traumatic experiences for me in terms of what I went through. So I'm sharing this with you guys because I want you guys to do the same thing in terms of the relationship that you have with your loved one. It can, as you can see, it can be negative or positive. It doesn't have to be good or bad. It just is what it is, right? My graph had some great things, and then it had some really traumatic losses. So that's what I want you guys to do with whatever situation you're processing. And so when you read the book and it's talking about the loss graph, this is what it's referring to. And that's what we'll talk about next week. Okay. Sorry, I went over a couple of minutes, but thank you guys for everything and for sharing so much of who you are. And we honor it. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. So we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Night, everyone. Thank you so much.
All right, thank
Yeah.
you.
And if
Thank
you
you.
know what, if you guys
Thank
have
you.
questions, type in the questions and I'll try to address them in the email that I send this week. Okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
So, Susan, let me turn my recording off here.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say.